two things, I think, why you see three things actually, why you see excessive fungus in people. One, weak adrenal glands, low sugar metabolism, which will come with low blood pressures, and therefore you're going to see low sugar metabolism. It's hard enough, and then you start moving from hypo, which is hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, to hyperglycemia, which is type 2. And you're going to see that it's not a disease, it's your adrenals, it's weak adrenals that are not producing enough steroids for you to have proper sugar metabolism. So then we decide to eat starch. In comes complex sugar. Hell, we're having a hard time fighting simple sugar, but not you have to have it, but with weak adrenals. Then in comes complex sugars. And you breed fungus like crazy with that. And then, of course, the breads are already fermented, the cheeses are already fermented that people eat. So people eat fungus all the time in their foods. So it's just amazing. And you just are breeding that sort of thing. The third thing I see, of course, is sulfur. Sulfur, you're talking about major fungal problems. If you feel like you have candida overgrowth, get yourself on Parasite M or some parasitic formula like that, and do a month, real intense month on it, and then come off of it. You can always tell when you're because you've had candida before, which most people do. That starch eating and weak adrenals, that all breeds candida big time. Too much sugar and low sugar metabolism. What would you expect? Bring in the fermenters, you know, because you have to have some part of life start breaking things down. Remember, life is always in flux, life is always moving, and it moves from the poles of positive and negative, and the scenarios birth, life, and death. To get rid of candida, you can use Parasite M or something like that, but you've got to move lymph. You have to understand what you're doing to bring that in. And remember, those of you that have been on sulfur drugs that have sulfur in your eye, you can just plan on having candida problems. But detoxification, virus, candida, fungus in other words, you're cleaning the body out, but you're also fixing why you're not metabolizing the sugars. And you're eliminating starch out of your diet because nothing's good about starch, it's just too much sugar. Just like protein is too many amino acids, starch is too many simple sugars. And that's why saturated fat is too many fatty acids. When you complex and saturate, it doesn't make it better. It makes it worse. Nature is more simplistic than that. We just like the complex, but that's the mind again, losing your way down the road of simplicity into a road of jargon, intellectualism, ideas, belief systems. This is a big deal. Candida is a systemic problem. So it's a big deal. You know, you got to clean yourself out. Fix the program consisted of eating healthy foods like vegetables, some grains, which promotes candida, honey, nuts, which is acidosis, which promotes them, legumes, that's all bad. High raw, low fat diet. Not really. Grains are fat, nuts are fat, legumes are fat, but these are all dead foods. These are all dead foods, and I don't care what we try to do to them, they're dead foods. You know, the only way is just what you said, sprout them, germinate them, turn them into a plant. Then the plant is alive. But then you need to wait till it gives you something. The plant is a being. Now that being is going to produce something for you, and it's going to hand it to you, and it's going to be called a fruit or a berry. And you're going to go, thank you, plant. I'll take this one and make me another, would you? And no fruits allowed for the first month. After the first month, you could slowly start introducing the less sugary fruits, but if you wanted better, faster results, to stay away from fruit for the next 6 months. How the hell are you going to clean candida out of your body fasting and eating foods? You're not. You haven't done anything that I see so far that did a candida cleanse. Whoever told you that's with a candida cleanse, Betty, didn't know their you-know-what from the you-know-what. That's not a candida cleanse. That's trying to keep you away from sugary foods. The problem isn't the sugar. The problem is your inability to metabolize it. Now, we all can't handle starches. That's a problem we all face. So you got to get away from it, and she put you on, or whoever put you on this, put you on grains. You don't go on grains when you have candida. That's the food they love. Crazy. I'm Italian, so I love, and that's a love, pasta, pizza, and all home-prepared food. Well, it's also great fungal food. I'm telling you, I can't think of, and don't take offense to this, please, but there's certain ethnic type foods that are real bad. Of course, that's one of them. You got your proteins, you got your cheeses, you got your white flours. Holy crap! Hell, I can't eat Italian food. It ripped me bad. But when one overcraves them, I'd kind of get the fungus out of me, because when you have a high fungal involvement, and you would if you love these foods, and these are the type of foods that builds excess fungus in the body. Fungus is always going to be needed like bacterium, but excessive amounts, I'm just saying. I know some practitioners that literally blame every single thing on candida. Every single thing. It's just a microbe. And yet they blame everything on it. It's just involved in fermentation, please. That's the point. And that should lead us to grain eating. And why not grain eating? Why not starches? And you got to go back to the adrenal glands to understand that. And if you have weak adrenal glands, in those adrenal glands is the word cortisol. This is a little steroid known to control sugar metabolism, or involved in sugar metabolism. When you're having cortisol problems, you're having sugar metabolism problems, and medical doctors come over here and label it either hypo or hyperglycemia. Hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, hyper or type 2. And yes, Chris, type 2 is much easier to cure than type 1. Type 1, you're into the genetics. And here's the other problem that people like MORSE face, guys. She's been on insulin 35 years. Now, let me put Chris on testosterone for 35 years, and then let me take it away from him. You know what's going to happen? Yeah, Chris, you're going to crash and burn like you've never crashed and burned before, because you just crashed your adrenals. That's what they're doing with all these type 1s with insulin. They're crashing the beta cells. And she's got that's the toughest thing about type 1. The longer you've been on insulin, the longer it can take you to work yourself out of this, because your beta cells, it's an endocrine gland. And whenever you give steroids, you show anybody that was on hydrocortisone or cortisone creams or shots for 35 years, and you know what you've got? A very serious wreck. You have destroyed that person's emotions. You've destroyed that person's mental outlook. These medical doctors have destroyed people's happiness through the use of hydrocortisone and cortisone creams and the like, because it slams their adrenal glands. Can't do that. That's why you guys are so important. You understand what causes the inflammatory response. Protein, acids. Absolutely. Fermentation, fermentation, fermentation. We combine our foods wrong. We eat foods that are hard to digest. We have a lot of fermentation. Well, guess what we create when we create fermentation? Guess who loves this baby when we create fermentation? Hello to Mr. Candida, Mr. Fungus. And you can't keep them out. That's like a buzzard smelling a dead animal. You can't stop the buzzard from finding them. They'll sniff it out. Most people are not eating the foods that are built for the human body. So if you're not eating your high fruits and berries and melons that are ripe and everything, and at least having maybe a salad or something, you're really not eating foods that are harmonious to you. And if you get sick because of that, you can't go to the decay side of life and say, you're going to help me, right? Because you're already in the decay side of life. Jensen bought into that. And he farted constantly. And I've already showed you, and you that come to class get to see his colon endoscopy before and after I worked on him. And this is the man that wrote the book, and I love him, but he had black bowels. You cannot eat foods that are fermented, and let's look at it this way. Everybody's bitching about candida and fungus, and you want to eat fermented foods? They're full of it. When you're talking about carbohydrates, they're full of fungus. That's what breaks carbohydrates down, is more fungus. So you're blaming, you want to eat fermented foods, but you don't want to have fungus in your body. I don't get that. It's kind of like where you used to give nutritional yeast. We used to give brewer's yeast and nutritional yeast. Then we go, no. Crazy. Itching all over my body. Okay, that's candida. That's not a die-off. That's a pissed off candida group. Raw foods will never clean the fungus out of you. I'm sorry. People have tried for years to do that with just raw foods. But that's why God has the herbs. Even natives, everybody has always turned to the herbs for their wellness, for their pharmacopoeia. Always, everywhere, in every culture. But there's so many things for candida and stuff. And one has to understand, again, you're not trying to attack and kill a community. You're trying to understand why that community has set up house in yourself, in your physical bodies. And it's easy to understand when you're dealing in carbon problems, which is sugar problems. And that's the side of fungus and the candida and moles and warts and all those. They're more fungi, which is more of the carbon fermentation people, where you've got your proteolytics more involved, like your bacterium, for your proteins and things like that, you know.